The story didn't end neatly. There was still pain, still injustice, still work to be done. But there was also hope, a fragile, flickering flame, that through resilience, awareness, and courage change was possible. Because the truth Jordan had lived, and Mallory had finally confronted, was simple yet profound. Judging someone by the color of their skin is the easy path. Choosing empathy, understanding, and action, that's the hard but necessary road. And the haunting question lingered, echoing far beyond the streets of Columbus. If we fail to confront our biases, who else will pay the price? His words landed heavier than he expected. Some kids nodded quietly, others just stared, processing a truth that would shape their understanding for years. He realized that resilience wasn't just surviving, it was teaching, guiding, and inspiring action in those who would follow. Mallory, meanwhile, faced her own reckoning. The police department launched a review of the incident, not as punishment, but as an opportunity to confront bias, rethink training, and rebuild trust. She engaged in community forums, listening more than speaking, absorbing stories she had once overlooked. Slowly, she learned that accountability isn't a one-time act, it's a lifelong commitment. The city itself felt the ripples. Neighborhoods once disconnected started conversations about justice, equality, and systemic change. Jordan's voice, calm yet powerful, became part of a larger dialogue, one that didn't shy away from discomfort but demanded reflection and action. Jordan thought back to his uncle, to every small injustice he had witnessed growing up. He finally understood that change wasn't a single act of heroism or confrontation. It was the cumulative effect of honesty, dialogue, and empathy. He could not change the past, but he could shape the present and inspire a future where assumptions weren't lethal. As dusk settled over Columbus, Jordan and Mallory stood side by side outside the community center, the tension now replaced with cautious respect. "We can't erase the past," Jordan said. "But we can make sure it don't happen like this again. We gotta teach folks, speak up, and keep pushing for justice." Mallory nodded, letting the words sink in. "I hear you. I'm listening, and I'm learning." And as the night deepened, both of them realized that the real work was only beginning. It wasn't about one incident, one traffic stop, or one video going viral. It was about changing hearts, minds, and systems. About refusing to let silence and fear dictate who was treated fairly. The rain finally eased into a gentle drizzle, and the streets of Columbus began to breathe again. Jordan leaned against the hood of his Ford, shivering, exhausted, but a quiet sense of clarity settling in. The ordeal had left bruises, physical, yes, but the deeper ones were emotional. He'd faced the kind of injustice that many only read about in news articles or saw in headlines. And he'd survived. Mallory Hayes approached slowly, hands in her pockets, drenched, but not defensive. The tension between them had shifted. It wasn't gone, but it had a new shape, accountability. "Jordan," she said softly, I can't undo what almost happened. But I swear I'm gonna do better. I see now. I've got work to do." Jordan studied her, seeing the vulnerability behind her badge, the weight of realization pressing down on her. He nodded. "Yeah, that's on you, Mallory. But it's bigger than just us. It's about everyone who's been judged, misread, or treated like a threat just because of the color of their skin." Across town, social media had erupted. Videos of the incident spread like wildfire, accompanied by commentary, debates, and activism. Jordan's story wasn't just a cautionary tale, it became a symbol. People shared it to educate, to demand accountability, to shine a light on the everyday realities of systemic bias. In the following days, Jordan returned to his community center. The kids who had watched the storm unfold on social media gathered around, curious, anxious, some even whispering. "Coach J, you okay?" Jordan smiled, though faintly. "Yeah, I'm good. But y'all gotta remember, this world sometimes treats folks unfairly just because of the skin they're in. That's not right. And it ain't just about getting mad, it's about doing something." The emotional weight hit Jordan fully. Tears mingled with rain as he realized how thin the line was between life and assumption, between justice and disaster. He had survived, but barely. And Mallory, for the first time in her career, confronted the brutal truth about herself. Flashback threaded in. Jordan remembered his uncle's eyes, wide and disbelieving, the night he was pulled over unjustly. The fear, the powerlessness, the helplessness, every detail replayed in his mind. And now, history had almost repeated itself. Only this time, Jordan's survival was a testament to caution, experience, and restraint. The climax wasn't just the physical danger, it was the emotional reckoning. Mallory's authority, training, and biases collided violently with Jordan's calm, resilience, and humanity. It was a cinematic storm of justice deferred, of assumptions exposed, of a society forced to confront its own failures. The neighbors, still watching, whispered among themselves. Phones recorded, videos shared, news outlets alerted. The ripple effect of this moment would echo far beyond the wet streets of Columbus. Jordan finally stood, shivering, soaked, exhausted, but alive. His eyes never left Mallory's. In them, she saw the pain, the endurance, and the humanity she had almost destroyed. She swallowed hard. I need to fix this, she admitted, voice trembling. I need to do better. Jordan nodded, barely able to speak. Yeah, you do. But don't just say it, Mallory, do it. The storm raged on, but something had shifted. The injustice had reached its peak, raw and unflinching, yet survival and awareness had emerged from the chaos. Both of them, scarred but changed, would carry the weight of this night forever. Jordan's stomach tightened. Every memory flashed through his mind: his uncle misjudged by police, friends harassed for no reason, the countless microaggressions that had shaped his life. And yet, he kept his voice steady. Ma'am, I'm not a threat. I'm just trying to get help. Please. Mallory's finger twitched near the trigger. Time slowed. A raindrop fell on Jordan's cheek, cold and sharp as the fear twisting in his gut. Then a voice broke through, the one sound that pierced her internal fog. Mallory! Wait! Trent shouted, sprinting forward, rain plastering his uniform to his back. Step back! He's not doing anything! But the tension had reached a boiling point. Every instinct she had was screaming at her. And in the split second of hesitation, a passerby's flashlight flashed directly in her eyes, blinding her momentarily. She flinched, and the taser went off. Jordan jerked, pain lancing through his side. He stumbled, falling hard onto the wet asphalt. Panic surged through the small crowd of onlookers, who screamed, some filming, some trying to intervene. Shit! Damn it! Mallory yelled, dropping the taser instantly, horror replacing fear. Jordan groaned, trying to sit up, his chest heaving. Rain plastered his clothes to his skin, every fiber heavy, soaked with humiliation and pain. The camera captured it all: the fear, the injustice, the pure human struggle against assumptions gone wrong. Trent reached him first, pulling him gently to his feet. Yo, you good, man? You good? Jordan nodded weakly, eyes locking with Mallory's. The storm around them seemed to pause, the rain muffling the city sounds. All that remained was the raw intensity of the moment, the collision of fear, bias, and humanity. Mallory's voice was barely a whisper. Jordan. But words felt useless. Actions had already told the story. The entire neighborhood had seen it unfold. The flash of taser, the stumble, the look on her face when she realized the magnitude of her misjudgment. Mallory Hayes' patrol car screeched to a halt behind him. Flashing red and blue strobe lights bathed the street, illuminating every droplet of rain, every anxious face. She leapt out, radio crackling, boots slapping against wet asphalt. Hands on the wheel! Now! Mallory barked, voice slicing through the storm like a knife. Jordan obeyed instantly, palms flat, muscles tense, aware that one wrong glance could end him. He tried to speak, to explain the car trouble, but Mallory wasn't hearing it, her mind consumed by the same unconscious fear she had carried for years. Why you out here at this hour? She demanded. You know this area ain't exactly Safe. Jordan's voice was calm but firm. Ma'am, my car broke down. I was heading home, just trying to get help. Her eyes narrowed. She didn't see a man, they didn't yet see each other. She saw risk, potential threat, the echo of every stereotype she had absorbed. And in that instant, instinct overrode reason. Step out of the car, she snapped. Jordan hesitated. Officer, my hands are visible, please. Her partner, Trent, called out from the rain-slicked sidewalk. Mallory, chill! He's not doing anything! But she didn't hear him. Not fully. The storm of bias, the years of internalized caution, and the adrenaline coursing through her veins had muted rational thought. Jordan stepped out slowly, raising his hands higher, voice shaking slightly from tension. Look, I'm just trying to. Before he could finish, a neighbor's motion-activated camera caught the scene, Mallory moving suddenly, hand on her taser. In a flash, Jordan froze. The world seemed to stretch, water dripping off neon signs, cars passing with splashes like small explosions, sirens echoing in the distance. Don't make me tell you again! Mallory yelled. Her flashlight bounced across his chest, highlighting the small scratches from the car trouble, the dirt from the street, the humanity in his eyes that she refused to see. Meanwhile, Jordan returned to his community center, greeted by familiar faces and cautious smiles. Kids who had looked up to him now saw the intensity of his struggle firsthand. Some didn't understand the racial dynamics yet, but the elders did. They whispered about the courage it took to stay calm, to survive, and to demand respect without raising a hand. He sat with Ray, the kid whose bike chain he'd fixed weeks ago. You okay, coach? Ray asked, eyes wide. Jordan nodded. Yeah, man. But I gotta be honest, sometimes grown folks make mistakes. And sometimes, they gotta learn the hard way. Ray frowned. Like what? Like judging people by the color of their skin instead of who they really are, Jordan said softly. But we fix it by speaking up, staying calm, and showing them the truth. And as the night wrapped around Columbus, the tension that had felt unending slowly eased, but not completely. The pain, the injustice, the whispers of systemic bias lingered like shadows. Both Jordan and Mallory knew this wasn't over. The story wasn't just theirs, it was bigger than them. Yet for the first time, something shifted. A conversation had started. An awareness had sparked. And that spark, fragile but bright, promised the possibility of change. The rain had turned into a cold, relentless downpour. Streetlights reflected off puddles like fractured glass, casting jagged shadows that danced across the cracked asphalt. Jordan's Ford had stalled at the intersection of 7th and Main, engine coughing, smoke curling from the hood. His heart raced, not just from the car trouble, but from a premonition he couldn't shake. Flashback. Jordan's uncle had been in a similar situation, misjudged by authority and left to face consequences he didn't deserve. Jordan had carried that memory like a quiet armor. Now, as he sat under the dim streetlights, the irony stung, history repeating itself in real time. Only this time, he could see the cracks and maybe, just maybe, make them right. He called his mom. She answered on the second ring, voice tight with worry. Mom! I'm fine, he said, trying to keep calm. But people are talking. Her sigh was heavy on the line. Honey, it ain't just talking. They're watching. But you stayed cool. That's what matters. Even as she spoke, Jordan knew the community's judgment, the media frenzy, and the unspoken tension in Columbus weren't going to disappear overnight. The pain and injustice lingered like smoke in a room after a fire. At the police station, Mallory typed out her statement. She disclosed her biases, acknowledged the assumptions she made, and explained how quickly things could have gone south if Jordan had reacted differently. It wasn't just a traffic stop. It was a mirror reflecting a flawed system, one that was built on patterns, fear, and unchallenged presumptions. Her captain read it over, silence stretching in the office. Finally, he looked at her. You did the right thing by being honest, he said. Not everyone will like it. But it's the first step. For Mallory, that moment was a pivot. A reckoning. She realized that systemic corruption wasn't always deliberate. It was sometimes baked into everyday decisions, microaggressions, and unchecked assumptions. Confronting it required more than acknowledgement, it demanded action. "Jordan," she started, voice low. I misjudged you." Jordan didn't answer right away. He just sat there, letting the rain plaster his hair to his forehead. He had learned long ago that apologies were just words until actions backed them up. Across the street, a neighbor peeked through the blinds, phone raised. The video that would later circulate on social media had already started. Clips of the stop, Mallory's hesitation, the subtle but unmistakable tension, all of it leaked, like water seeping through cracks in a concrete wall. Within hours, the small community of Columbus was buzzing. Some people were angry at the police. Others were skeptical, quick to defend. Jordan's friends and family called nonstop, trying to make sure he was okay. Messages poured in. "You good, bro? Ain't nobody gonna touch you now. We saw that video, man. WTF?" The fallout wasn't just public, it was personal. Jordan's phone buzzed with news alerts from local outlets, each one more sensational than the last. Headlines shouted about the officer who misjudged a man of color, and the traffic stop that revealed deep systemic issues. Every buzz was a reminder that the world saw him in fragments, often misrepresented, often reduced. Meanwhile, Mallory retreated to her car, heart pounding. The internal struggle she'd carried for years came spilling out in whispers. She replayed every decision, every snap judgment, every lesson from her father that had steered her wrong. Her hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white. She called her partner, Trent. "Yo, we need to report this differently," she said, voice strained. "We gotta tell the truth this time. No sugarcoating. No excuses." Trent hesitated. "You sure? You know how it'll look." "I don't care," she said sharply. "It's time someone takes accountability." Jordan, on the other hand, remembered his uncle's face, the look of confusion and fear as police misjudged him years ago. Every encounter, every subtle prejudice, had trained Jordan to see patterns. He knew instinctively that silence could save him, but the tension was eating at him. The threads, past and present, intertwined, building suspense, emotional weight, and stakes. The audience could feel it. One wrong move, one unspoken bias, one silence too long, and everything Jordan had worked for could shatter. The rain kept falling. The night stretched on. And both of them, cop and community hero, were on the verge of a confrontation that would leave nobody the same. And just when it seemed the tension might break, a shadow moved in the distance. A witness, a camera, someone capturing everything. A decision had to be made. And inaction? Silence? That, too, had consequences. The audience is left dangling. Who will act? Who will speak? Who will survive the collision of perception, history, and human error? The aftermath hit like a heavy fog. Sirens had finally faded into the distance, leaving the street quiet except for the occasional drip of rain from the cracked rooftops. Jordan sat on the curb outside his car, hood pulled low over his face, chest still rattling from adrenaline. Every muscle ached, but not from exertion, from the weight of what had just happened. Mallory Hayes stood a few feet away, drenched, writing her report with hands that shook just slightly. Her pen felt heavier than the badge on her chest. The words she wrote were facts, yes, but the truth? That was harder to put down. She finally looked at Jordan, really looked, and saw a man who hadn't been the threat she assumed, who hadn't flinched, who hadn't lashed out. He was human. Whole. More dignified than she felt at that moment. A car sped past, splashing water across the curb, right into Jordan's chest. He wiped his jacket, exhaling. Mallory flinched, and for a second, the entire situation felt electric. The tiniest spark could ignite years of misunderstanding. "You good?" she asked, voice softer now. "I'm good," Jordan said, nodding. But his eyes didn't leave hers. The storm of history between them was silent, yet undeniable. Trent leaned closer. "Mallory, maybe we should let him off with a warning?" Mallory hesitated. She wanted to agree. Part of her knew this was wrong, but another part, the part trained by assumption and fear, froze her in place. Silence became complicity. Meanwhile, the neighborhood watched from behind windows, phones buzzing. They'd seen this before: a black man pulled over, tense standoff, a cop who thinks she knows better. They whispered warnings, shared stories of past injustices, stories that weighed on Jordan like invisible chains. The rising action wasn't just about the traffic stop. It was about every unchecked bias, every assumption, every silent acquiescence that built a system where one misjudgment could ruin a life. Jordan's mind flashed through 1,000 what-ifs. What if she called back up? What if she escalated without reason? What if this stopped being about a taillight and became about survival? And that's when the first real turning point flickered on the horizon, just out of reach, the moment when one decision, one bias, one lapse in awareness, would set off a chain reaction that nobody could undo. Flashback intertwines. Mallory, just a rookie, years earlier, watched her father berate a black man for acting suspicious in their quiet town. She nodded along, uncomfortable but silent, absorbing lessons she didn't fully understand at the time. Those lessons resurfaced tonight in every microsecond of hesitation. It wasn't fear that had him shaking, it was rage wrapped in disappointment. Another microaggression, another reminder that the world's assumption about him was all wrong. Every time he was reduced to a stereotype, a shadow of someone he wasn't, it chipped away at his patience. And the night was just getting started. Flashback 3 years earlier. Jordan sat on the hood of his beat-up Ford, nursing a beer in the parking lot of a 24-hour grocery store. He just finished another long day coaching kids at the community center. He remembered this thing vividly. 2 plainclothes officers approached him, asking questions he hadn't done anything to warrant. They said I matched a description, he recounted to a friend later. What description? A black guy. Because apparently, that's all it takes to be suspicious. The injustice burned, but Jordan buried it deep. He had kids to inspire, bills to pay, a life to keep steady. He couldn't afford to break apart in anger, not publicly, not in front of the community he was trying to uplift. Back to the present, Mallory scribbled in her notepad, every line feeling heavier than the last. The rain soaked through her uniform, but she barely noticed. She felt uneasy, a subtle gnawing in her chest, but she chalked it up to stress, training, or whatever excuse kept her from facing the truth about herself. Jordan, meanwhile, was calm on the outside, but internally, he was calculating. Each interaction with police had taught him patterns, the ways authority figures think, how to maneuver the rules without giving them a reason to escalate. The microaggressions, the tone in Mallory's voice, the clipped questions, the assumptions about him, built a silent tension. One wrong move, one misread glance, could explode everything. And then it did. License and registration, she said, voice crisp. Sure thing, Jordan said, sliding his wallet out. He kept his hands visible on the wheel like every officer had drilled into him growing up. Mallory's eyes flicked to the wallet, the hands, the car's interior, and something inside her clicked. Here's the problem. Right here. It was subtle, too subtle for her to notice, but it triggered every warning she had internalized over years of police briefings, neighborhood rumors, and late-night news. You know your taillight's out? She added. You been driving like this for a while? Yeah, I think it went out last week. I was gonna get it fixed tomorrow, Jordan replied, calm but wary. Her lips pressed into a thin line. Right. You got insurance, right? Yeah, of course, he said, pulling it from the glove compartment. Every movement measured, careful. Her partner, Officer Trent, hovered behind her, eyes darting to the street, shaking his head like he already knew the story but wasn't saying it. You know, Jordan, Mallory started slowly. It's just, people like you make me nervous sometimes. Jordan froze. Excuse me? Mallory blinked, realizing she'd said it aloud. The words floated in the misty air, heavier than the rain. You, people like me? Jordan repeated, voice steady, though heat was crawling up his neck. You mean black guys? Is that it? Trent looked away, uncomfortable. Mallory shifted, eyes darting between the dark street and the man in front of her, trying to justify a feeling that wasn't rational, wasn't fair, but felt urgent. Jordan could have exploded, yelled, called it out, but he didn't. He had learned long ago that survival often meant silence. He nodded slowly, masking the fire inside him. Yeah. I guess I see how that could be scary, Mallory stammered. The blue and red police lights painted the whole street like a broken disco, flashing across the cracked sidewalk and the shuttered corner store. The night smelled like burnt rubber in cold rain, the kind that seeps under your clothes and chills your bones. People stood on their porches, phones out, whispering. Man, what the hell happened? In the middle of all that chaos, sirens humming low, radios crackling, stood her. Officer Mallory Hayes. Tight jaw. Hands shaking just enough to notice. Her uniform soaked from the drizzle, her eyes locked on the man sitting handcuffed on the curb. And him. He wasn't yelling, wasn't panicking, hell, he wasn't even looking up. He just sat there with this strange calm, like he had already lived this moment 100 times before. The neon lights from the liquor store sign flickered across his face, highlighting every bruise. Someone in the crowd whispered, Yo, ain't no way she just did that to him. But no one really knew. Not yet. Because 10 minutes earlier? This man was just driving home. Just minding his business. Just existing. Now? The whole neighborhood was watching a moment that was about to explode into something nobody could walk away from unchanged. Officer Hayes swallowed hard, her voice cracking as she finally said the words nobody expected from her. Not someone with her reputation, not someone who carried herself like she was born in that badge. God, what have I done? Her partner shot her a look. Mallory, don't say anything stupid right now. We'll handle this. But she barely heard him. Her eyes drifted to the man again, slowly, cautiously, like she was only just now realizing he wasn't who she thought he was. The rain got heavier. People leaned in. Phones zoomed closer. Because the truth, the real truth about what she did, who he really was, and why tonight would flip this entire city upside down, was just seconds away from detonating. And once it blew open, nobody would ever see either of them the same again.